Hey there, Drowsy Historian here. Tonight, you're not a bold explorer discovering the mysteries of North Africa. You're not a merchant, or a prince, or anyone with even the faintest chance of shade. No, tonight you're something far more disposable. A nameless porter in a camel caravan crossing the Sahara. You carry someone else's wealth on your back, gold you'll never touch, salt that chews your skin raw. Maybe a chained person or two, if the trade winds are right. The sun will try to kill you. So will the thirst, so will the camels. And if those don't get you, the silence might. So before your lips crack and your sweat turns to dust, leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I love to see who's listening from around the world. If you'd like early access to more of these historical bedtime tales, plus other perks like ad-free audio of these episodes, there's a link to the Patreon in the description. But for now, lie back, breathe shallow. Pretend the smell is just leather and not your own skin baking off. Let's begin. You are not born into this life. No one is. No one looks up at the sun-scorched sky at the age of 6 and says, "One day, I want to be part of a camel caravan dragging sacks of salt across a boiling wasteland." You got here the same way most people do, by running out of options. Maybe you owed someone money. Maybe your last crop failed. Maybe you did something you shouldn't have, and someone with a knife suggested you disappear. So now you're here. Not because you were chosen, but because you were forgotten. You're not important. That's not false modesty. It's a structural fact. The caravan doesn't run on brotherhood or dreams. It runs on hierarchy. At the top are the merchants, men in embroidered robes who don't walk if they can help it, who ride the largest camels and complain about the quality of dates. They have names that are known, recorded, and remembered. Beneath them are the camel drivers, grizzled men with ropes for hands and sand for souls, who know how to keep a beast alive in a place where most people die. Below them are the enslaved, who carry what the camels cannot. Their names are not remembered. And then there's you. You are a porter, a hireling, a voluntary participant in your own devaluation. In theory, you're here for money. You signed on for a cut of the profits at the end of the journey. In practice, your payment will be so small that by the time you buy food and lodging in whatever city you collapse into, you'll be right back where you started. Broke, sunburned, and begging for work. The caravan master told you this would be good experience. He said things like character building and adventure. He also didn't tell you about the 3 people who died on the last trip, or that he never learned their names. You saw him once, the caravan leader. He rode past on a camel that looked better fed than any man here. He was tall, or at least sitting tall, with a scarf wrapped tightly around his mouth and a look that suggested even your death wouldn't be interesting enough to notice. He didn't speak to you. You didn't expect him to. He deals with merchants, not with walking liabilities. If you collapsed tomorrow, someone would take your place. If no one did, they'd divide your pack between 2 other poor bastards and keep moving. Time is money. You are not. The journey begins at a hub. Timbuktu maybe, or Takaza, names you've heard but barely understand. The air already tastes like dust and old sweat. You arrived days ago and still haven't stopped sweating. The loading begins before sunrise. Camels groan as bundles of salt are strapped to their backs, thick bricks wrapped in hide, packed like gravestones. There are hundreds of them, and still somehow not enough. Every load is too heavy, every rope too short. Someone always shouts, someone always bleeds. You carry a pack. It weighs somewhere between unreasonable and structurally ruinous. It's filled with trade goods you can't afford. Bolts of cloth, bundles of incense, maybe even a few bars of gold wrapped in cloth and buried under the less tempting cargo. You don't know. You don't ask. Your job is not to know. Your job is to walk and lift and sweat and not die. There is a system to the caravan, a brutal, reliable system. Every man, and it is always men, has a place. Some lead camels, some guard cargo, some, like you, do whatever no one else wants to. That includes burying the dead, cleaning camel sores, and boiling water until it's only mildly poisonous. You sleep where there's space and wake when someone kicks you. There is no schedule, only motion. No map, only memory. The caravan will cross the Sahara, not the edges, not the friendly postcard version, with sand dunes and sunset camels. The real thing. A hellscape of stone and sand stretching for hundreds of miles in every direction. The route is old, worn into the bones of men who came before you. You will walk for weeks, maybe months, depending on weather, injury, and divine indifference. The destination could be Gat, or Sijil Masa, or Cairo. It doesn't really matter. You're not going for the destination. You're going because if you don't, you starve. There are stories, everyone has them. Tales of men who got lost in the dunes, whose tongues swelled and split before they collapsed into the sand. Of caravans that vanished in storms and were found years later, bones stacked neatly beside cargo that no one had the strength to steal. You've heard these stories. You believed none of them until you saw the eyes of the man who told them. Then you started packing extra rags for your feet. Food is basic. Hard bread, dried meat, whatever doesn't rot in a sack. Water is life, and therefore power. You're given a skin at the start of the journey, and you guard it like a child. Drink too fast and you'll run out before the next well. Drink too slow, and you'll collapse anyway. There is no perfect pace where you're only the illusion of control. A kind of slow motion, drowning in dust. At night, the temperature drops with the cruelty of a joke that's gone on too long. The same sand that boiled your feet during the day now bites into your skin with cold teeth. You curl up in your robe and listen to the wind gnaw at the tent seams. Some men talk, some cry, you don't. Talking wastes water. You are not a hero. You are not brave. You are here because the world did not give you another option. You are one man in a long line of men, stretching across the dunes like ants with no colony. If you disappear, the caravan does not stop. It adjusts. If you fall behind, no one turns back. They'll assume you died or hope you did, because otherwise someone might feel bad. But don't worry, no one will. You wake up sore, you walk, you sweat, you sleep. This is the pattern now. It will not change. The only real variable is how much of you survives the journey. Physically, mentally, spiritually. Spoiler, probably not all of it. The first thing you notice about camels is the smell. It's not the smell of an animal exactly. Not like a horse or a dog or even a goat. It's more complex than that. It's the scent of something old and angry, steeped in its own filth and fermented in the sun. Imagine a vat of spoiled vinegar, stale urine and body odour left to marinate in a leather sack. Now imagine that sack is alive and that it doesn't like you. That's a camel. People call them the ships of the desert. That makes it sound graceful, maybe even noble. Ships don't hiss when you approach. Ships don't spit half-digested stomach contents at your face. Ships don't urinate on their own legs just to stay cool, then sit down on your only pair of sandals like it's a personal insult. Camels are not majestic. They are monsters with knees, and unfortunately, they are also the only reason you're still alive. You don't ride the camels, of course. That honour is reserved for the merchants and caravan leaders, the men with coin and clout. You walk beside them, dragging your pack, while the beasts lumber along with the indifference of minor gods. They can go for days without water. They can carry hundreds of pounds across the worst terrain on earth. And they do all of it while looking at you like you're the weak link in this arrangement. They are correct. A camel's body is a desert survival machine. They have nostrils that close against sandstorms, thick lips that chew thorn bushes like salad, and feet so wide they walk on sand like it's pavement. Their humps store fat, not water, contrary to every children's book you've ever read. But that fat helps them regulate their body temperature and survive long dry spells. Their blood cells are oval-shaped, which means they don't clog when dehydration sets in. And their kidneys, near miraculous. They filter waste so efficiently, that camel urine comes out like syrup. You know this because sometimes it gets on you. You learn to walk at a safe distance behind them. Too close, and you're in the splash zone. Too far, and you risk losing your group in the maze of shifting dunes and grumbling beasts. But distance doesn't always save you. Camels kick backward, and not with a gentle tap. It's sudden and explosive, like being hit with a bag of bricks, wielded by someone who's been waiting all day for an excuse. One of the younger porters learned that the hard way. He got too close, tripped, and took a kick to the thigh. He didn't die, but he didn't walk right again either. They strapped his pack to another camel and left him at the next well. You haven't asked what happened to him since. You don't want to know. Every morning begins the same way. You help pack the camels. This is a delicate, unforgiving ritual. The saddles are not elegant, just crude wooden frames lashed with rope and padded with whatever cloth hasn't rotted. You must balance the load carefully. Too much on one side, and the camel will complain. Loudly. And by complain, you mean roar. A guttural, gurgling bellow that sounds like someone drowning in a mud pit while screaming about taxes. If you do it wrong more than once, the camel driver hits you with a stick. If you keep doing it wrong, the camel bites you. Neither punishment is preferable. They chew constantly, not because they're hungry, they're ruminants. That means they regurgitate food to chew it again. You watch with something like horror as a camel burps up a slimy wad of half-fermented grass, chews it, swallows, and repeats. Sometimes, when annoyed, they'll burp in your direction. A thick, visible mist of gastric revenge. It sticks in your nostrils for hours. You will never forget it. You will smell it again in your nightmares. You try not to anthropomorphize them, but it's hard. They seem to know things. Not just where to find shade or water, but how to make your life specifically worse. They sit down when it's time to move. They wander off when it's time to rest. They eat your bedding. They step on your possessions. One of them once stared you dead in the eyes while kicking over a clay pot of water. You could swear it smirked. Still, your life depends on them. They carry the goods that pay your non-existent wages. They carry the water you drink, the tents you sleep under, the few tools and spare robes that make the difference between dying in the sun and dying slightly later. When the wind picks up and the dunes begin to shift like liquid, the camels keep walking. They always know the way, or at least pretend to. You follow them like a reluctant disciple, trailing after a god that wants you dead, but keeps you around for entertainment. There is a language to handling them, though you'll never speak it fluently. It's in the clicks of the tongue, the tug of a rope, the pressure of a palm against leathery flank. The camel drivers know it. You watch them work like conjurers, steering a half-ton beast with a grunt and a flick. You try it once. The camel ignores you, then sneezes directly into your face. The mucus is warm. It sticks. Night is no better. Camels don't sleep like humans. They lie down, groan, sigh, and stare at you through the dark, like they're calculating your replacement value. When the moon is high, and your feet still throb, you hear them shifting, snorting, defecating, chewing, belching. You don't get rest, you get ambiance. And yet, for all their horrors, you come to depend on them. When the sun beats down and the wind howls, the sight of their stubborn humps swaying against the horizon becomes your only constant. When your legs are jelly and your lips crack and your brain feels like it's turning to ash, you follow the camels. Not because you trust them, but because they don't stop. Because unlike you, they are built for this. You start to envy them. Not their temperament, never that, but their purpose. They belong to the desert. You do not. They will survive this. You probably won't. But until then, you will keep walking beside them, packing and unpacking them, feeding and cursing them, depending on them for your miserable, sand-choked existence. You used to think the desert would be your enemy, but no, the desert doesn't care about you. The desert is just there. The camels, though, they hate you, and they're going to make sure you know it. You used to think thirst meant a dry mouth, maybe a scratchy throat, an excuse to ask for a glass of something cold and clean. That version of thirst belonged to a different life, a better one. Now, thirst is a creature that lives inside your body and sharpens its claws on your organs. It doesn't ask, it gnaws. It doesn't whisper, it howls. And no matter how much you drink, assuming you get to drink at all, it's never enough. Water is the currency of the caravan. It's stored in goat skin bladders, sloshing around like half-coagulated soup in the sun. The skins are stained and brittle, tied with cords that fray more every day. They hang from the sides of camels or sit in the dust, absorbing heat until the water inside tastes like leather and regret. Some are sealed well, most are not. You can see where they've leaked, dark patches in the sand that dry almost instantly, like the desert itself is drinking first. There's a strict hierarchy for water access. The merchants drink first. They have their own water, cooler, cleaner, sometimes even scented. They sip while sitting in the shade of improvised tents, swishing the liquid in their mouths, like they're sampling wine. The camel drivers go next. They don't linger. Just a gulp, a splash on the face, maybe a quick rinse of the eyes if no one's watching. Then the camels. Yes, the animals come before you. A well-fed camel is worth more than a healthy porter. Everyone knows it. No one says it. When it's finally your turn, the water is warm. Not tepid, warm, body temperature. If you close your eyes, you can almost pretend it's soup. Almost. But then it hits the back of your throat with the flavour of old rope and something metallic. You sip slowly because you've been warned. Drink too fast and you'll vomit. Vomiting wastes water. Wasting water is a punishable offence. There is no trust here, not with water. Every man counts sips. You count yours. You count other people's. You lie about how much you've had and watch others lie in return. When someone collapses, the first thought isn't, are they okay? It's how much water did they still have? Then you argue about whether it's worth the time to check their skin before moving on. Usually, it isn't. You try to be strategic. You wet a rag and suck on it through the day. You avoid speaking. You urinate rarely and celebrate when you do. The colour tells you everything. And when it starts coming out the colour of clay or not at all, you know it's going to be a bad day. But all your tricks only delay the inevitable. The sun never lets up. It waits, it watches, and it always wins. Dehydration doesn't begin with a dramatic fainting spell. It starts small. Your mouth stops producing saliva. Your tongue feels like it's wrapped in wool. Then come the headaches, dull at first, then sharp, like tiny chisels digging behind your eyes. You try to blink them away, but your eyelids are dry too. Your vision gets blurry, your muscles cramp. Every step feels like walking through syrup, except you're sweating too much to know where the fluid is going. Eventually, your sweat stops. That's when you know the body is giving up. It's conserving what little moisture it has left. You're lightheaded, but not in a pleasant way. Your skin starts to feel wrong. Tight in some places, loose in others. Your heart races, then it slows. Then it flutters like a bird trapped in your chest. You lie down for just a moment, just to rest your legs, and someone kicks you to make sure you're not dead. Not because they care, but because it's easier to kick than to stop. There are men who drink sand by mistake, not a metaphor, actual sand. They hallucinate puddles, oases, glints of water on the horizon that shimmer and shift as you approach. You chase them, you fall for them. And when you realise it's just more sand, your mouth is open anyway. So in it goes, grip between your teeth, in your throat, in your stomach. You cough for hours. The idea of an oasis becomes a kind of religion. You begin to pray for one, even if you've never prayed in your life. You scan the horizon constantly, looking for palms or movement, or even the smell of water, though you're not sure if water has a smell anymore, or if your brain is just inventing one to keep itself amused. You've heard of wells, but most are dry, or poisoned, or controlled by someone who doesn't like the look of you and would rather sell the water to someone who matters. Once the caravan reached a real oasis. You remember it clearly. Not because you got to drink your fill, you didn't, but because of the colour. Green, real green. It looked fake, a cluster of trees, a glimmer of still water. Camels were led in first, then the important men. You waited, along with a dozen others, until a thin boy with cracked lips handed you a bowl of water. It was warm and slightly bitter. It was the best thing you'd ever tasted. You haven't seen anything like it since. At night, the thirst changes. You no longer feel the heat on your skin, but inside your body. Like your blood is boiling, like your bones are sweating. You dream of rivers. You wake up licking your own hands. You once chewed a piece of cloth just to keep your jaw moving. When you woke up, it was missing. You've forgotten what it's like to feel full. Not full of food, that's its own category of misery, but full of moisture. You try to remember the last time you drank without thinking about it. The last time you weren't rationing each drop like it was medicine. That memory is gone, replaced with the image of someone shaking a skin of water and finding it light. Sometimes you imagine what would happen if you broke rank, if you ran for the next well, drank until you were bloated, submerged your face in cool water, and screamed into it just to hear a sound that wasn't sand, but you don't. Because there's nothing there, just more dust, more sun, more thirst. Water, you realise, is not a resource, it's a rumour. A story told to keep people walking. You are surrounded by wealth, literal, staggering, stupid wealth, gold bars, slabs of salt, carved ivory, bolts of imported silk, bundles of incense, and more than a few humans in chains. It's the kind of cargo that kings have killed for, that empires have risen to protect and fallen trying to steal. And none of it is yours. You don't even get to touch it, not unless you're carrying it, bleeding on it, or being crushed beneath it. The gold is the worst in some ways. It's deceptively compact. A single wrapped bar looks harmless, even dainty, until you try to lift it. Then you realise you're dealing with solidified greed, a glittering, back-breaking slab of metal that could buy a city and is currently trying to dislocate your spine. You carry it anyway. It rides in heavy satchels lashed tightly to camel sides or buried in cloth packs on your back. You don't get to see it often, not directly. Just glimpse it, an exposed edge, a torn wrap, a flash of dull yellow in the sun. You used to marvel at gold. Now it just makes you tired. Salt, though, salt is the daily enemy. Blocks of it, carved from mines into Gaza, stacked like bricks, sealed in animal hide to slow the decay. The desert heat doesn't care. It melts and reforms them in place, bleeding into the fabric, crusting over rope. You carry it on your back, strapped down with strips of goat leather that bite into your shoulders and never stop. The salt leaches through the hide, through your clothes, into your skin. Your back starts to sting by midday, like you've been whipped with vinegar. By the second week, your skin splits in places. By the third, you stop noticing. Salt doesn't just hurt you, it ruins everything. It eats through cloth. It makes your food taste like nothing. It burns your eyes when the wind kicks it up. When it mixes with your sweat, it forms a kind of paste, white, crusty, clinging to every crease of your body. You wash it off when you can, which is never. Mostly, you just itch. You scratch until you bleed. You bleed until you scab. Then the scabs crack, and you do it all over again. Then there's the ivory, smuggled in careful bundles, wrapped in damp cloth and padded like newborns. You've carried it too. It's smoother than it looks, polished and pale, almost soft in places. But it's heavy, always heavy, and cursed if the old men are to be believed. They say ivory remembers who took it, that each piece holds a scream, if you press your ear to it. You've never dared, but you've heard things at night, long, low sounds that might be wind or grief, or elephants calling out for things that no longer exist. Textiles come next, colourful, precious, absurd. Cloth dyed in brilliant colours, packed so tightly that it soaks up blood like a sponge. You've bled on it before. Everyone has. No one tells the buyers. When you lift a roll onto a camel's back, it presses against your chest and steals whatever sweat you have left. Some of it smells sweet, like perfumed silk. Some of it smells like rot. All of it smells like you by the time it arrives. There are spices too. Ginger, cloves, cinnamon, tucked into tight satchels and always under lock. You're not allowed near them. Not to smell, not to touch. The guards keep a closer eye on a sack of nutmeg than they do on you. Once a porter tried to sneak a pinch of dried coriander. He was caught, beaten, and left beside the trail. You're not sure if he died. You are sure no one cared. And then there are the people. Slavery isn't a secret here. It's an industry. Men, women, and children, most of them chained. Some simply roped together and too weak to run. They march like you do. Except worse, they don't get shoes. They don't get water unless someone remembers. Sometimes you wonder what separates you from them. A coin, a contract, an accident of timing. You walk ahead of them and try not to look back. Their eyes make it harder to keep walking. Their silence is louder than the camels. The merchants never touch the cargo. They point, and men like you lift. They sit in the shade and argue about market prices while your knees collapse under another satchel of spice that costs more than your life. They sip flavoured water and complain about the smell while you lie next to a leaking salt bundle that's taken the skin off your side. They don't see you. Not really. You are background labour. Dust with bones. The worst part, the truly unbearable part, is that all of this has value. All of it is precious. Even the salt, which you can't eat and wouldn't want to. It will be sold for a fortune. Someone will trade it for meat and wine and silks, and women and gold. And you will get nothing. Not even thanks. Maybe a coin. Maybe two, if you're lucky, and someone's feeling unusually generous. But probably not. Every day you carry wealth across a land that gives nothing back. Every day your body is punished by things you cannot use, cannot sell, cannot even taste. It is an exquisite kind of cruelty. You're not dying in the name of survival. You're dying in the name of profit, someone else's. Your hands are blistered, your back is warped, your feet are raw, and when you sleep, you dream of being crushed under piles of treasure that whisper to you in languages you've never learned. The salt speaks first, then the gold, then the voices of people still walking behind you, lighter now, because they've left something behind. Skin, blood, or memory. You don't need to know what's in every sack. You already know what it costs. You don't remember when you first heard the word kamsin. Maybe someone muttered it under their breath. Maybe one of the camel drivers looked at the sky, spat in the dust, and said it like a warning. Either way, no one explained it to you. They just tightened their headscarves and adjusted their loads like soldiers before battle. That's what it is, really, a battle. But the enemy isn't a raiding party or a band of thieves. It's the sky. And it's tired of pretending to be neutral. It starts slowly. The wind picks up, but not in a friendly way. It doesn't whistle. It growls. At first it's just a breeze, hot and sharp, carrying flecks of sand that sting a little when they hit your skin. Then the light begins to shift. The sun turns pale, then orange, then something darker, like it's peering through stained glass made of dust. Shadows vanish, colours fade. You look around and see the same expression on every face. Not panic, not yet, but dread. The kind that comes from experience. The first real gust hits like a slap. You stumble. Someone behind you curses. The camels groan and shift uneasily. Sand begins to rise in sheets, curling low along the ground, before exploding upward into the air like a wave that forgot how to brake. Visibility drops by the second. You can still see the camel in front of you. Then you can't. Then you're not even sure there's a camel at all. The noise comes next. Not just wind, but wind. Screaming, howling, roaring. Pick your metaphor. It's all of them, and none of them. It drowns out everything. You try to speak, to shout, to call out for someone, But your words vanish the moment they leave your mouth. The sand eats sound. It eats light. It eats hope. You drop to the ground and try to cover your face. Everyone does. Scarves, sleeves, whatever you have. It's not enough. The sand finds every gap, every opening. It slices across your cheeks, sneaks into your nostrils, settles in your ears. You close your eyes and still feel it grinding against your lids. It's in your teeth, your throat, your lungs. You start coughing and can't stop. The camels lose it first. You hear them bellowing, deep, panicked moans that rise above the wind for a moment before being swallowed again. Some bolt, some sit down and refuse to move. Some trample, whatever's unlucky enough to be underfoot. You don't know where your camel is. You barely know where you are. Then someone screams. Not a warning, not a command, just pure blind terror. You crawl toward it, or away from it, you can't tell. You can't see. You can't breathe. You feel a body pass beside you, close enough to touch. You reach out. Nothing. They're gone. You wonder if you imagined them. Time stops meaning anything. Minutes pass like hours. Hours like days. You sit, or crouch, or lie flat. You don't remember when you stopped moving. You only know the sand hasn't stopped. It's in your clothes now, turning the fabric into sandpaper. Your skin is raw. Your joints ache. You'd cry, but your eyes are dry and burning. When the wind finally weakens, it's not relief, it's confusion. The noise dims. The air becomes less aggressive, more sullen. You lift your head slowly, unsure whether it's over or if this is just a cruel intermission. You try to stand, you fail, your knees buckle, you crawl instead. The world around you is unrecognizable. What was once a line of travellers is now a field of lumps in the sand. Some of them move, some don't. Camels wander aimlessly, half blind, their sides coated in dust. The sky is still orange. The light is still strange, but the storm has moved on, bored of you, hungry for something else. You find your pack buried under a thin crust of grit. Your water skin is half full, a miracle. You take a sip and spit it out. Dirt. You try again, more dirt. You drink anyway. Everything tastes like dirt now. Bread, dirt. Air, dirt. Your own skin, dirt. You have become part of the landscape, a moving dune with teeth. The sand has made its way under your clothes, into every crease, every fold. It's in your boots, your waistband, your ears. You strip what you can and shake it out, but it clings like guilt. Your skin is scraped raw, your lips cracked and bleeding. You run your fingers through your hair and come away with mud. Sweat and sand fuse together like glue. You regroup with the others, what's left of them. No one says anything at first. There's nothing to say. You do a head count. The numbers don't add up. No one asks where the missing went. Some are probably buried just a few feet away. Others may still be crawling. A few might make it back on their own. Most won't. The caravan master is furious. Not at the storm, that would make too much sense. He's angry that the loads have shifted, that camels have wandered off, that his merchandise has been disturbed. He barks orders. He hits a man who's too slow to rise. You watch and say nothing. You're still coughing up sand. Later, you walk, because that's what you do. No rest, no delay, just walking. The desert shows no sign of what just happened. The dunes have shifted, but they always do. The path is gone, but it always is. The sky is clear again. The sun returns, smug and bright, as if the storm was just a test you barely passed. You realise something then. The sandstorm didn't come from above. It came from everywhere. It wasn't an event. It was a reminder. You don't belong here. You're not a traveller. You're not a witness. You're a target. The desert doesn't kill with malice. It kills with indifference. And today, it let you live. Not because you deserved to, but because it hadn't finished with you yet. The desert doesn't need to scream at you to ruin you. It already did that during the sandstorm. That was loud. That was theatrical. That was the kind of pain you could point to, even if it left your ears ringing for a week. But this is different. This is what happens when the wind settles down, the sky clears, and you just keep walking. For hours, then days, then weeks. This is how the desert kills you quietly. There is no shade. That's not a metaphor. There is literally no shade. The sun has no competition. You squint through the blinding white sky and realize that nothing out here is taller than a camel's knee. The dunes roll on forever, featureless, identical, like some lazy god got bored halfway through designing a landscape and just copy-pasted the same line 1,000 times. There's no horizon either. Not really. Just more sand, blending into more light, blending into more sky. It plays tricks on your depth perception. You walk towards something for 6 hours, only to find it's no closer than when you started. You think you're turning left, but somehow you're still heading forward. You stop trusting your eyes. You start watching the sun instead, using it like a broken compass. It doesn't help. The sun wants you lost. Sound is a memory. There's the wind, of course, yet dry and constant, like an exhale that never ends, and the occasional grunt of a camel or rattle of pack straps. But those sounds barely register. You've gone hours without hearing a human voice. Even when people speak, they do it in murmurs. You forget what a normal conversation sounds like. Laughter seems alien now. You try to remember the last time someone made a joke. You can't. Your feet are an ongoing disaster. You stopped worrying about blisters after the first week. Now it's about the layers of blisters. Some new, some old, some popped, some crusted over into hard black ridges that pull at the rest of your skin with every step. Your sandals are falling apart. You've patched them with scraps of cloth and rope. They smell like mildew and regret. You stop taking them off at night. It hurts less to keep them on. The heat is a separate presence, like a weight draped over your shoulders. Not sharp, not sudden, just relentless. It presses into your spine, trickles down your back, turns your thoughts sluggish. You think slower now. You speak slower too if you speak at all. Your tongue feels too big for your mouth. Some days you don't bother forming full sentences. There's no one listening anyway. You start talking to the camels, not in a funny, whimsical way, not like a child with a favourite pet. You talk to them like they're co-workers you've known too long. You insult them. You ask them questions. You apologise to them when you drop a load too hard. You catch yourself saying, "Good morning," to the same one every day. You think it might be the same one anyway. It has a mark near its left eye, or maybe it doesn't. You can't be sure. You forget things. First, it's small stuff. What day it is, whether you've eaten. Then bigger things. Names, faces, where you're headed, why you came. You wake up some mornings, if you can call them mornings, and spend the first 10 minutes trying to remember what country you're in. You once forgot your own name for an afternoon. You remembered eventually, but the panic that came with the forgetting never really left. The silence gets inside you. Not the absence of noise, the presence of silence. It fills your head like smoke. You lie awake at night and can't tell if the ringing in your ears is real or imagined. You hum sometimes just to hear something familiar, but even that starts to fade. You used to hum tunes from home. Now you hum nothing. Just a flat, tuneless sound. Like static, like the wind. You hallucinate, not dramatic visions, not at first, just flickers. A figure in the corner of your eye, a tree that disappears when you blink, a whisper you mistake for someone calling your name. Then it escalates. You see pools of water shimmering just ahead. You see your mother's face in the sand. You hear a bell from a city you left years ago. Sometimes you feel someone walking beside you, close enough to touch. When you reach out, your hand closes on empty air. You dream about water, not just drinking it, being in it, submerged, weightless, cool and clean and silent, in a way that doesn't press against your skull. You dream of rivers, of wells, of bathtubs. You wake up licking your cracked lips, furious that your own mind is mocking you. You dream about home too, about doors that close, beds with sheets, meals served on actual plates. You see faces you haven't thought about in years. You hear languages you forgot you could speak, but the dreams rot when you wake up. They slip away fast like water through your fingers. Then you're back in the sand, surrounded by the same tired faces and the same colourless world. The caravan keeps moving. It always moves. You don't know how. You suspect some of the others are just as gone as you are, but no one wants to admit it. So you all walk like ghosts, like heat-stunned insects following a scent trail to nowhere. No one talks about it. No one says, "I feel like I'm losing myself." You just recognise the look in their eyes, that 1,000-yard stare that doesn't quite land anywhere. You have it too. You start to wonder if the desert is erasing you on purpose, like it has a file with your identity on it, and every day it deletes a line. Your memories, your personality, your sense of time. Not all at once, just slowly, methodically, until what's left is a body that walks and drinks and eats and doesn't ask why anymore. That's what survival is here. Not fighting the desert, but letting it hollow you out just enough that you can keep walking without noticing how little of you is left. Before this line of work, you thought death would come with ceremony, some final words, a moment of silence, maybe someone kneeling beside you, whispering prayers or saying something comforting, even if it was a lie. But that was before the desert, before the caravan, before death became background noise. Out here, death is not a tragedy. It's a logistical inconvenience. The sick begin to slow within the first few days, though you don't notice it at first. Everyone moves slowly. Everyone groans when they stand, limps when they walk, winces when they shift the weight of their pack. Pain is the default setting, but some people start falling behind, just by a few steps, then more. They cough, they stop eating, they retch when they try to drink the water. Their faces go hollow, their eyes dull. Eventually, they stop speaking altogether. That's when you know. You don't ask what they have. There's no doctor, no medicine, no diagnosis. Fever, sunstroke, dysentery, it doesn't matter. The outcome is the same. There are no treatments here. Just sand and time. You offer them water if you're feeling kind, but kindness costs energy, and you have none to spare. You barely have enough for yourself. Food is a problem too, there's never enough. Just hard, dry lumps of grain, or pressed dates that taste like fermented sawdust. Meat, if it shows up at all, is either spoiled or suspicious. You eat it anyway. You don't ask where it came from. You chew slowly and try not to breathe through your nose. Hunger replaces taste. Then it replaces everything else. Your body begins to fail in stages. First, it's just the cramps, stomach turning, tightening, begging for something to work with. Then comes the dizziness, your vision tunnels, your head feels too light, your hands start to shake and your knees don't lock right anymore. Eventually, your body tries to purge whatever poison it thinks you've given it. What comes out is either dust or soup. Both hurt, both dehydrate you further, neither gives you any relief. You can smell the sickness on other people. It's sour and wrong, a kind of rotting from the inside out. You start avoiding the ones who reek too strongly. Not that you think you'll catch it. You probably already have, but the smell makes you nauseous, and that's dangerous. Vomiting means more water loss. More water loss means collapse. When someone finally goes down, it's not dramatic. They don't scream. They don't cry. They just stop walking. Maybe they sit. Maybe they try to crawl. Maybe they don't move at all. If someone notices, they might grunt. If someone cares, they might toss the dying man a crust of bread or half a skin of water. But no one waits. That's not how this works. The caravan doesn't stop. Not for the weak, not for the dying, not for you. You saw one man try to carry his friend. He didn't make it far. A camel driver beat him back into line and left the sick man to fade into the dunes. A few hours later, you looked back and saw the body, just a dark shape on the sand, already half covered by wind-blown grit, The camels didn't even flinch as they passed. One of them stepped right on the corpse. You remember the sound. You wish you didn't. Sometimes they bury the bodies if there's time, if the ground is soft enough, if someone important is watching. But most of the time, they don't. It's easier to just move on. The desert will take care of it. The sun dries the flesh, the wind strips the bones. The animals, the few that survive out here, finish the rest. After a day or two, there's no sign anyone was ever there. You stop remembering names. It's easier that way. When a face disappears, it's just another empty space in the line. You might notice at the end of the day, when the packs are redistributed and someone grumbles about having to carry more. But you don't talk about the missing. You just walk a little faster, as if moving might put some distance between you and whatever they had. Your own body is not exempt. You've had fevers. You've shivered under the weight of the sun. You've had nights where your pulse raced for no reason, and mornings when you woke up soaked in sweat, shaking. But you keep walking, because that's what survival is here. Not health, not strength, but motion. As long as your feet are moving, you're still part of the caravan. The moment you stop, you're not a person anymore. You're a burden. You begin to rehearse what you'll do if your time comes. How you'll tie your water skin to a pole and leave it somewhere visible, hoping someone will take it. How you'll find a patch of shade, even a shadow cast by a rock, and lie down facing away from the sun. How you'll try not to scream when the sand starts to cover you. You tell yourself you'll be calm, but you don't believe it. Eventually, you stop thinking about death altogether. Not because it scares you, but because it's boring, repetitive, predictable. You've seen enough bodies to understand the pattern. There's nothing poetic about it. No flash of insight, no final revelation. Just a slow unravelling of the body and the quiet indifference of everyone around you. The camels don't notice. The caravan master doesn't care. The desert doesn't remember. You carry the weight of other people's wealth on your back, and when you collapse, someone else will carry it in your place. That's the way it works. You're not a person. You're a placeholder, and when you're gone, you'll be replaced before your name finishes fading from someone's memory, assuming anyone bothered to learn it in the first place. You thought the desert was done with you when the sun went down. After all, it's the heat that breaks you during the day, the skin-searing, water-draining, thought-melting glare that turns your brain into a slow stew and your muscles into string. So when the sun finally dips below the dunes, when the sky turns purple and the shadows grow long, you expect relief. You expect mercy. What you get is cold, not a chill, not a breeze, but cold, pure, sudden, and absolute, like the entire world has turned its back on you and walked away. The heat doesn't fade gradually. It falls off a cliff. One moment you're sweating through stiff cloth and trying to shield your face from the last, stubborn rays of sunlight. The next, you're shivering so hard your ribs feel like they're going to snap. Your sweat cools into icy rivulets. Your skin prickles and contracts. The same robes that clung to you all day, like damp bandages, now flap uselessly in the wind. You wrap yourself tighter, huddle into a ball, pull your knees to your chest. It helps, barely. The stars come out slowly, like they're trying to pretend this is beautiful. And maybe, to someone else, it would be. The sky's clear, impossibly clear. No clouds, no light pollution, nothing but endless, silent night, stretched over you like a vast, indifferent ceiling. You can see everything, sharp constellations, streaks of cold white light, the occasional flicker of something falling, burning, dying in the upper atmosphere. But it doesn't feel comforting. It feels too big, too far away. Like the stars are watching you, but only out of boredom. Sleep is never restful. You don't have blankets, you have rags. You don't have a bed, you have sand that's still hot near the surface but cold just beneath. Like someone buried fire and left it to smoulder. You lie on your side, then your back, then your stomach, rotating like a piece of undercooked meat. You shift constantly, trying to find a position, where your bones don't dig into the ground. There isn't one. Eventually, your body gives up, not because you're comfortable, but because you're too exhausted to care. If you're lucky, you're not on watch. If you're not lucky, and let's face it, you're chosen to stay awake while others try to sleep. You're handed a torch stub and a small knife, as if either will make a difference, and sent to sit by the edge of camp. You're told to watch for movement, for animals, for raiders, as if you could stop them. You keep the fire small. Light travels far out here, and the wind is always ready to snuff it out anyway. You crouch beside the flickering embers and squint into the dark, trying to make sense of shifting shadows. Everything looks like a threat, a cluster of rocks, a camel kneeling too still, a bent shrub. You imagine wolves watching from the dunes, eyes glinting, breath clouding in the cold. You imagine men instead, lean silhouettes with blades and muffled footsteps, waiting just beyond your vision. You wouldn't blame them. You wouldn't even resist. Some of the men talk during night watch. Not much. Just scraps of stories, old memories, half-truths passed around like stolen coins. One says he saw a ghost in the dunes. A man without eyes, wrapped in tattered robes, whispering prayers to no one. Another tells a story about a well that gives water only if you don't look into it. You listen because it's better than silence, even if you don't believe a word of it. Others pray, quietly, not for rescue, not for riches, just to make it through the next day. You've tried. Your prayers feel thin, like they don't travel far. Maybe the sand eats them. Maybe the stars don't listen. Or maybe they do, and they just don't care. Time stretches differently at night. Minutes feel like hours. Your limbs ache from stillness, your mind drifts, then snaps back. You count stars, you lose count. You try to remember a song you liked once, a face you haven't seen in years. The sound of a city at night. None of it sticks. It all fades into the wind. Sometimes you see things that aren't there. A figure crouched on a dune. A flicker of movement behind a camel. A face that vanishes when you blink. You try not to panic. You tell yourself, it's just exhaustion. Just the tricks of moonlight and shifting sand. But you keep your knife close anyway, knowing full well that if something comes, you'll drop it. You're not a fighter. You're just cold and tired and pretending you still matter. The dunes look different at night. Their edges glow faintly under the stars, bone white and ghostly. They look like waves frozen in time, silent and motionless, but always waiting to shift. The wind never stops. It whispers across the sand in long, slow strokes, carrying fragments of conversations and the distant, low groans of camels dreaming or dying. Sometimes it's hard to tell which. When the night ends, if it ends, it doesn't happen suddenly. There's no bright sunrise or chorus of birds. Just a gradual lightening of the sky, a softening of the shadows. The wind changes. The cold doesn't vanish so much as retreat back into the crevices and cracks of the desert. Waiting to return? You stand if you've slept at all. You shake the sand out of your robe, find your pack, and join the others. No one talks about what they saw. No one mentions the shapes, the voices, the fears. You all look equally haunted, equally brittle, as if speaking might confirm what you're all trying to forget, that you're not alone out here, and that doesn't make you safer. You start walking again, because that's all you know how to do. And above you, the stars fade, one by one, like lights going out in a room that never belonged to you. No one tells you when you've entered dangerous territory. There are no signs, no skulls on sticks, no ominous music. The desert doesn't change. The sand still stretches endlessly. The sun still beats down with the same bored malice, but the caravan changes. The pace slows. The camel drivers stop shouting as much. The merchants start riding closer together. And the guards, such as they are, begin to keep their hands near their blades. You follow their lead, even if you don't know exactly what you're watching for. You just know something is different. And different in the desert usually means worse. Raiders are not a certainty. They are a possibility, and that possibility is always hovering in the back of everyone's mind, like a headache that hasn't quite arrived. Sometimes they appear as silhouettes on a distant dune, motionless as statues. Sometimes they ride up at night when the wind masks their approach. Sometimes they simply materialize. Men on camels dressed in indigo-dyed robes, their faces veiled, their eyes sharp and unreadable. You hear the word Tuareg whispered, though no one dares say it too loudly. You're not sure if it's a warning or a prayer. They don't always attack, that's the trick. Sometimes they talk first, sometimes they even smile. It's worse when they smile, because it means they're not going to kill you, yet. It means they want something else. Goods, money, camels, people. You stand there while the caravan leader negotiates in clipped, careful phrases. You don't understand the language, but you understand the tone. Everyone is pretending to be polite, while secretly deciding how many people can be lost before it becomes unprofitable. The bribes are never subtle. Bags of grain, bolts of cloth, hunks of salt. Once a camel. The merchant who gave it up looked like he'd handed over his firstborn. The raiders rode off with it, laughing. You remember the way the camel turned its head to look back, like it knew it was switching sides and wasn't sure it minded. Other times, they take people. Not with violence, not always. They just point. A nod from the leader, a word from one of the men in blue, and someone is led away. Maybe they're a porter, maybe a slave, maybe someone who didn't hide their jewellery fast enough. You don't stop them. No one does. You keep your head down and your eyes on your feet, and you tell yourself it's not your problem. You're probably right, but not every encounter ends with smiles and silence. Sometimes they strike first. No warning, no chance to run. Just chaos, shouts, blades, dust. You hit the ground and press yourself into the sand, trying to make your body smaller than your shadow. You don't even think about fighting back. You're not paid for that. You're not paid at all. You once saw a man get speared through the chest, not in battle, not in some glorious last stand, but because he tried to run. He broke from the line, staggered across the sand, and collapsed. One of the raiders followed, calm as a man harvesting crops, and drove a spear through his back. No one screamed, no one moved. You watched the man twitch once, then go still. Then you looked away and pretended you hadn't seen it. You didn't want to be next. Afterward, there's always silence. The raiders disappear as quickly as they came. The dead are left where they fell, or stripped for gear before being tossed aside. Sometimes, the wounded are patched up. Sometimes, they're not. The caravan doesn't hold funerals. It doesn't mourn. It counts losses like broken cargo and moves on. You've learned to do the same. There's a kind of diplomacy to it all. A language of glances, gestures, pauses. The caravan leaders know how to speak it. So do the raiders. It's not about law or fairness. It's about risk and reward. The desert is too big, too empty for anyone to truly control it. So everything comes down to reputation. Who can be pushed? Who will fight back? Who is desperate? Who can pay? You're none of those things. You're just a body in the middle, hoping not to be part of the next calculation. You carry a knife, but only because someone gave it to you. You don't know how to use it. You barely know how to hold it. You sleep with it under your mat anyway, just in case. You've imagined what you'd do if someone dragged you from your bedroll in the dark. You've practiced stabbing a pile of blankets. It didn't help. The fear doesn't come all at once. It creeps. You start jumping at shadows. You flinch when someone shouts. You eye every stranger, like they might be a scout in disguise. You imagine eyes behind every dune. You start sleeping less, eating less, thinking less. You try not to talk about it, but everyone feels it. The air is thicker. The silence is deeper. The nights are longer. Eventually, the threat passes, or seems to. The caravan returns to its usual rhythm. Slow, grinding, indifferent. You keep walking. You try not to think about the people who didn't make it. You try not to think about the next time. You tell yourself it's all behind you, but you still check the horizon more often. you still keep your knife close, and when you see movement in the distance, your first thought is no longer, "What is that?" but "How much will they take?" You don't blame the raiders. Not really. They're just surviving, same as you. The difference is, they have the advantage. They know this land. They choose when and where to strike. You just walk through it and hope you're not interesting enough to notice. You hear the word before you see it. Oasis. It travels down the line like gospel, passed from sunburned lips to cracked ears, whispered with reverence as if saying it too loudly might make it vanish. You don't believe it at first, you've been tricked before. Heat shimmers, strange rock formations, distant mirages that vanish when you blink. But this time, it doesn't vanish. It gets clearer, greener, more real, a smudge of colour in the endless beige growing slowly into palm trees, and shadows, and the glitter of something too blue to be anything but water. The effect is immediate. The line of porters straightens. The camels grunt a little less. People start walking faster. The mood lifts slightly. It's hope or something like it tugging at your legs. The idea that, for just a moment, you might escape the sand and the sun and the taste of salt on your tongue. You imagine sitting in the shade, cupping cool water in your hands, maybe even biting into something soft and sweet. You let the image play in your mind, because it's the first kindness you felt in weeks. But the oasis is not for you. You reach the edge just as the caravan fans out. The camels are led in first, of course. They're allowed to drink freely. Some are even bathed. You watch one lie down in the water, its eyes half lidded in lazy satisfaction, while a porter scrubs its flanks. That porter is not you. You stand in the sun, squinting, waiting for instructions. Your skin prickles with heat and jealousy. The caravan leaders move in next. Merchants, guards, anyone with status or coin. They take the shade beneath the palms. They unfurl rugs, sit cross-legged, pass around fruit. You didn't even know there was fruit. They sip from bowls, splash water on their faces, and laugh at jokes that don't reach your ears. One of them strips to the waist and steps into the spring itself, groaning with theatrical pleasure. You watch as droplets run down his back and sink into the sand. You would have caught them with your tongue. Eventually, someone shouts your name, or something close to it, and you're herded to the side of the spring, where a boy with a bent ladle stands behind a barrel. You're given one scoop. The water is warm, almost hot. It tastes like old tin and algae. You drink it in one go, because if you don't, someone else will knock it out of your hands. When you ask, politely even, if you can have another, you get a slap across the shoulder and a command to move. You move. You're not allowed near the real water, not the pool, not the shaded barrels, not even the runoff the camels splash through. One man tries, he steps too close, reaching to refill his skin. A guard knocks him down with the butt of a spear. He lies in the dust for a while, groaning, then crawls back to his pack. No one helps him. You pretend not to see. There are rules here, old ones, unwritten and unspoken but strictly enforced. The oasis is a privilege, not a right. It exists for the survival of the caravan's value. The camels, the goods, the men who own them. You are not value. You are an expense, and expenses don't get luxuries. You can't even sit in the shade. That's reserved for the important. You squat behind a dune and try to curl your body into a smaller shape, hoping the wind might offer you a little pity. It doesn't. Some of the guards bathe, not quickly, not modestly. They strip down and lower themselves into the water, splashing each other, scrubbing their limbs, sighing loudly. One pours water over his head and lets it trickle down his spine, as if he's performing for you. He sees you watching. He smirks. You look away, ashamed of your own hunger, not for food, not for water, but for the sensation of being clean. Someone hands you a half-rotted date. It's mealy and sour, but you eat it anyway. You haven't had fruit in weeks. It sticks in your teeth. You lick the pits for a while, before spitting them into the sand. Nearby, a camel relieves itself. the sound cutting through the soft breeze like a slap. It reminds you what you are, not a guest, not a traveller, just another beast being tolerated. As the sun lowers, you're allowed to refill your water skin, under supervision of course. Not too much, just enough to make it to the next stop. You're watched the entire time, as if you might dip your hand too deep and poison the whole spring with your filth. You don't push your luck. You take your ration and step back, clutching it like it's stolen. At night, the merchants dine beneath the trees. You hear music. Someone has an instrument, plucking out a slow, delicate tune. Laughter rises, a fire crackles. You chew stale bread in the dark, your back against a rock, watching the glow from a distance. The oasis is still there, but it may as well be 1,000 miles away. Its light doesn't reach you. Its comfort never will. Before dawn, you're woken to pack up. No warning, no farewell. The spring is left behind, trampled and muddied. You glance back once, hoping to imprint the image in your mind. But already the desert is reclaiming it. The wind kicks up. The trees blur. The green fades. Soon, it will be as if it was never there. You walk away thirsty. You were always going to. At first you think it's just a rock. A pale, curved shape, half buried in the sand. You're too tired to care. You've walked past so many strange shapes out here. Wind-worn stones, dried up roots, scraps of leather or cloth stripped from abandoned packs, that you barely glance at it. But then the light shifts, and you see teeth, not all of them. Just a row of them, still stuck in a fragment of jaw, grinning. It doesn't scare you, not immediately. It's too dry for fear. You just stand there and stare at it for a few seconds, feeling the wind cut past your ears, wondering who it belonged to. Someone like you, probably. Someone who stopped walking, someone who didn't get up again. You don't say anything. You just keep walking. Because that's what everyone does, that's what you're meant to do. The bones start showing up more often after that. One here, one there, a femur bleached almost white, a skull with a caved inside, a pair of ribs sticking up from the sand, like someone started to build a tent and gave up. You don't know if the wind uncovered them, or if the desert just decided you were ready to see them. Either way, they're there now, scattered along the path, watching you pass like forgotten mile markers. No one says anything. No one needs to. The men who've done this before barely glance at the remains. The newer ones, the ones still holding on to a little fear, a little hope, look away quickly, as if shame might somehow protect them, as if acknowledging the dead means you'll join them. You tried that too once. It doesn't help. Some of the skeletons are still wrapped in cloth. You can't tell what colour it used to be. The sun has drained it down to something the shade of rot. Somewhere scraps of jewellery, copper bracelets, cracked beads, the occasional anklet still clinging to bone. That's when things get complicated, because jewellery means value, and value is temptation. It happens quietly. Someone spots a glint in the dust and pretends to adjust their sandal. A minute later, their pack is a little heavier. You see it, others see it, no one says anything. There are no rules out here, just consequences. One evening, a man finds a silver ring on the hand of a mummified corpse. It's still on the finger, the skin shriveled but intact, the nail yellow and curled. He hesitates, then takes it, slips it into his pouch like it means nothing. He doesn't try to hide it, that's the strangest part. He just shrugs and keeps walking, like he's picked up a particularly shiny pebble. That night, you hear him muttering to himself. Not prayer, not conversation, just soft, frantic whispers. You can't quite make out. You roll over and try to sleep anyway. There's a sharp wind blowing. It covers the sound. By morning he's gone. No blood, no tracks, no body, just an empty bedroll and a half-packed satchel left behind. Someone finds the ring still sitting inside it. No one touches it. It stays there for the rest of the day. Then the satchel disappears too. No one asks where it went. You want to believe he just wandered off, lost his mind, followed a hallucination, fell behind. It would be easier than the alternative, that the desert noticed his little theft and came to collect, but you can't quite make yourself believe either story, so you settle into the quiet middle space. You accept that he's gone. You don't ask questions. That's safer. After that, people stop picking things up. You pass through an old trail, a part of the desert not used in years, and find more than bones. You find the ghosts of a whole caravan, rotting packs, half-collapsed tents, camel skeletons twisted into shapes no living thing should die in. You see a wagon wheel, half buried, a water skin, split and dry, the remains of a cooking fire, long dead, ringed by broken stones. You think about what it would have looked like. How many voices once filled that space? How many bodies moved between those tents? You count at least a dozen skulls, maybe more. You stop counting. Someone asks the caravan master what happened here. He just says, storm, then moves on. That word carries weight. You've seen what a sandstorm can do. But this feels older, more deliberate. Like the desert didn't just kill them, but kept them. Like it wanted to leave a warning. You spend the next few nights sleeping lighter. Every gust of wind sounds like footsteps. Every shifting shadow looks like someone coming back to claim something. You tell yourself, it's just nerves, that you're imagining it. But when you lie down, you turn your back to the bones. It never becomes normal. Not really, but it becomes something close. You stop reacting. You see a skull and think about how white it is, how smooth. You wonder if yours will look the same. You don't flinch when a rib cage pokes up from the sand. You just step around it. You've learned to move quietly around the dead. Some nights you hear stories, hushed voices passing around myths about cursed artifacts, haunted routes, skeletons that rise in the night to chase the living. You don't believe them, but you don't laugh either. You just listen and nod and keep your hand near your pack. Eventually, you realize something strange. The dead don't scare you anymore. What scares you is how easy it is to ignore them, to forget they were people, to stop caring, because if the desert remembers everyone and still buries them anyway, what chance do you have of being remembered at all? You don't realize it right away. There's no trumpet, no cheering, no grand archway to pass under, just a shift in the air, not cooler, not cleaner, just different. Less sand, more smoke. You blink through sunburned eyelids and see something on the horizon that doesn't shimmer. Square shapes, walls, towers maybe. Real ones, not mirages. The camels start to grunt in a new way, restless, like they know they're almost done. The men around you start moving faster. That's when you know. This is it. The end. You've made it. You don't feel triumph, just confusion. You've been walking for so long that stopping doesn't feel real. Your legs keep moving out of habit. You're not even sure what city this is. Sijil Masa, Gat, Cairo, does it matter? You're not here to stay. You're here to empty the camels, collect your pay, if anyone remembers to give it, and then vanish into whatever alley doesn't spit you back out. The gates are open. You pass inside with the rest of the caravan, stumbling between buildings taller than any dune, past faces that barely glance your way. The city is alive with noise, hawkers shouting, children laughing, camels braying, but none of it has anything to do with you. No one claps you on the back. No one thanks you for surviving. You are another sun-bleached body in a long, trudging line of them. The merchants dismount first, of course they do. They straighten their robes, adjust their turbans, dust themselves off like they've just returned from a pleasant stroll. One even yawns theatrically, as if to say that wasn't so bad, was it? They walk ahead into the city, where they'll be greeted with handshakes and cold drinks and counting scales. You don't watch them go. You've seen enough of their backs already. You drop your pack like it's trying to kill you, which it probably was. Your shoulders ache in places you didn't know existed. Your feet are open wounds. Your robe hangs off you like it's given up. You're covered in sweat, dust, dried blood, camel fur, and something that might be your own skin. You smell like fermentation. You look like you've been buried and only partially dug out. You are, in every visible way, a walking warning sign, and yet no one notices. You're told to wait in the square. Someone promises pay will be distributed soon, which means whenever they remember or run out of other things to do. You sit in the shade of a wall, knees drawn to your chest, eyes half closed. You would sleep, but the stone is too hard and the noise too loud. A boy throws something at you. A date pit, maybe. You ignore him. Another man kicks you lightly with the side of his foot and tells you to help unload. You're too tired to argue. The camels, at least, look pleased. They're led off toward troughs and shade, unburdened at last, their sour attitudes momentarily replaced with something like smugness. You envy them. They'll be fed, watered, brushed down. You'll be lucky to get a bowl of thin lentils and a coin the size of your thumbnail. Unloading is worse than walking. Your muscles are stiff now, cooled and inflamed. Every crate feels twice as heavy. You drag them from camelbacks, through narrow alleys, into storerooms that reek of mould and spices. You nearly drop a sack of salt on your foot. No one helps you. No one says careful. Just another shout to move faster. Eventually, someone hands you a pouch. It's small. Too small. You open it and see a few grimy coins, none of them silver. You look up to protest, not angrily, just confused, but the man is already walking away, tossing another pouch to the next porter in line. You want to ask if this is a mistake, if maybe some of your share went to the wrong person, but deep down, you know it didn't. This is your share. You don't count the coins, you just tie the pouch and tuck it away. It feels lighter than it should. Everything does. You think briefly about what to do next. Find a bed, find food, sell the pouch for medicine, sleep for 3 days. You realize you don't have a plan. You were so focused on surviving the journey that you forgot what came after. Now that you're here, you feel more lost than ever. Some of the other porters are already disappearing into the crowd, walking like men released from prison, hunched, limping, aimless. You recognize their faces, but not their names. You realize you never learned most of their names. You don't think they knew yours either. You consider leaving, walking into the city, starting over. But your feet won't move, not yet. So you stay where you are, sitting in the shadow of a crumbling wall, watching the sun drop behind a rooftop. Your hands are blistered. Your lips are cracked. You're covered in lice. You scratch absent-mindedly and stare at the ground. A merchant walks past, laughing. He's holding a glass of something cold. He doesn't see you. You don't expect him to. You made it. You survived the Sahara, and no one cares. You thought finishing the journey would feel like something. Relief, maybe. Pride, if you were delusional. Even just the numb satisfaction of having made it. But standing here at the edge of a foreign city, sunburned to the bone, hollowed out by heat and thirst and silence, you don't feel anything at all. The desert took that too. You were not the first to walk this path, not by a long shot. Thousands came before you, porters, traders, slaves, walking the same route, carrying the same loads, hoping for the same things. Most of them didn't make it. They collapsed in the sand, curled under the weight of salt or gold or ivory, and disappeared. Their bones became landmarks. Their names, if anyone knew them, were forgotten before the next caravan passed by. You've seen the bones. You've stepped around them. You've pretended not to recognize the shape of a jaw or the curve of a rib. You told yourself they were warnings, not mirrors. But the truth is simpler. The desert keeps everything. Every scream, every death, every discarded pack, every broken dream. It just buries them under more sand. And sooner or later, you'll be part of that too. No one will write songs about you. No one will carve your name into a ledger. You were not a hero. You weren't even a footnote. You were labor. Temporary, expendable. You carried wealth for men who didn't know your name and never once looked you in the eye. And now that your job is done, you'll be discarded like worn rope or a camel with a limp. History remembers the gold. It remembers the cities that grew rich, the rulers who traded, the markets that blossomed along the caravan routes. It remembers the salt that bought kingdoms, the ivory that decorated palaces, the spices that reshaped empires. It does not remember the men who carried them. It does not remember you. And yet, for a few unbearable weeks, you existed here. You walked the same path as countless others, burned under the same sun, drank from the same tainted skins. You breathed the dust, shared the silence, watched the stars and tasted the edge of your own mind. That counts for something. Not much, but something. If you die here, your bones will bleach in the sun. Or maybe the camels will trample you. Maybe no one will even notice. The caravan won't stop. It never does. You'll be a bump in the trail, then a skeleton, then nothing. And that's fine. That's how this has always worked. You were never meant to be remembered. You were only meant to carry the load, and you did. That brings us to the end of tonight's journey. Not a tale of triumph, but of thirst, blisters, and the kind of anonymity only the Sahara can provide. If you're somehow still awake, thank you for limping across the desert with me. If you'd like early access to more slow disasters and overlooked footnotes in humanity's long tradition of suffering for someone else's profit, plus other perks like ad-free audio of these episodes, there's a Patreon link in the description. Feel free to like, subscribe, or leave a comment sharing the exact point at which you would have sold your soul for half a canteen of warm camel water. And if you're listening on a podcast app, a rating or review helps more weary travellers find their way here.